On this week's episode, I'm going to be painting up this elf druid and getting it on a custom base. Hey guys, what's going on? Michael here. So this week I am opening up this Reaper Miniatures. It's called Autumn Bronzeleaf, and it's one of their metal miniatures. And I'm going to be getting it ready, painting it, and putting it on a custom base. So to start out with, I'm just using a file, and I'm cleaning up some of the mold flashing, which is just a little bit of extra pieces of metal that you'll find around the seam lines of this mold. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Zap-A-Gap super glue, and with a puff of the accelerator on the base and some super glue on the miniature, I'm going to glue this down to just a plastic base. The reason for that is it'll give me a little bit more stability when I stick this to my cork. After that, I'll begin by priming this out with Vallejo Black Surface Primer. The first step in this painting process is going to be to use Vallejo's Pale Flesh and paint out all of the bare flesh bits of this miniature. The player who this miniature is for had only one request, and that was red hair, so I'm starting out with a base of Mephiston Red. So I decided to go purple for the fabric pieces on this miniature. In particular, I'm using Vallejo's Royal Purple as a base. For the leather armor on this miniature, I'm using a base of Sick Green by Vallejo. Now going back to the hair, I'm going to add a layer of Evil Sunz Scarlet. There are a few little metal pieces on this miniature, and I decided to use metallic silver to do the pieces of armor. For the bits of jewelry on the miniature, I'm going to use metallic gold to accent them and make them pop against everything else. Next up, I'm going to be using Agrat's Earthshade over the hair to bring out some of the definition and depth to the sculpt. Now for the staff, it'll get a nice base coat in Porconi Paint's base wood. To give some definition to the flesh, I'm going to be using Citadel's Reclin Flesh Shade, and I'll go over all of the places that I did my flesh base coat. The bits of leather armor on the sculpt have a ton of detail, so I decided to use Goblin Green by Vallejo as a dry brush and go over these to bring out all of those little bits of detail. Druchii Violet goes on next, a nice even coat over all of my purple pieces. This will give a little bit of a darker highlight in the folds of the fabric. The next step on the hair is to add Wild Rider Red as just a dry slather over the highest points on the sculpt. I'll finish up the hair with a little bit of Rizza Rust. Now this is just a very slight dry brush on the highest points of the hair. For the base, off camera, I used a little bit of cork basing material just set with some Aleene's tacky glue to give a coarse texture around the metal base of the miniature. I threw a couple of larger chunks of stone in there, but for the most of it I'm going to be using Shallow Water Seaweed Green by Porconi Paints to make this look like rough foliage. I'll finish out my stone with base gray, and I'll probably go back and do a slight dry brush of stone edge dry brush just to give it a little bit more definition. And here you have the completed miniature. I just love the detail in this sculpt, and the metal lends itself really well to showing that off. The miniature itself feels really great in hand, and it's a pleasure to play with on the tabletop. I think that my players will be really happy when they see this hit the table. I certainly love how it turned out. Hey, if you like these videos and want to help me keep making them, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button.